BTS Golf stands for body type specific. Back in 2002, I was watching golf on television, and they had one of the commentators make a swing analysis of one of the players that was playing that day. I thought it would be really cool if we could actually measure the golf swing. Instead of just having subjective opinions as to what we see in the swing, why don't we try to measure it? So I set out to design a swing quantification program. And what I did was I actually measured the coordinates of 26 different positions in the swing. And I did this for 112 amateur players and 52 pros. And we would take a video, of course, and then we would take still photos from that video. And then I would put a yellow dot on the yellow shoulder, for example, on the left shoulder, for example. And then I would put a blue dot to signify where the model player would be. And we would measure that discrepancy. So I would then ask the kinesiologist to prepare a program, an exercise program, for people to do in the health club downstairs to alleviate what we saw in the swing analysis. So we took some time, and after doing quite a few of these, we saw there were patterns. And so I had a lot of data to look at. And when I sat down to start looking at this data, we started recognizing patterns and tendencies. And this is what body type specific is all about. It's all about your natural patterns and your tendencies. And some people tend to move the club a certain way versus others who move the club completely differently. So I wanted to understand why that was happening. And we ended up doing some strength tests, flexibility tests, and range of motion tests. For example, we would put a marker on the wrist and the elbow and the shoulder, and we had a camera up above, and we would ask the person to move their arm back and see how far back they could go, and then we would measure that distance. And we would do the same with markers on the shoulders and turn the shoulders and see how much they could turn, and we had the camera up above and we could actually measure it. And what was interesting in that test was that the players with the projected shoulders, the shoulders projected forward, when they were doing this drill where they were going from an extended arm to contracting their arm, they were very, very strong. But when we asked the same people to go from a contracted position and extending up, they were not that strong. What I tried to do is I tried to understand which physical characteristics were defining the patterns and tendencies that we were seeing in the golf swing. And basically in physiology, there's three main body types: ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. And, but unfortunately, not all of us, we're not all a pure form of one of those three body types. We're all hybrid forms of it. And so when I finally was able to identify the physical characteristics that define the mesomorph, ectomorph, endomorph, and their particular traits, I was able to put different combinations together because, like I said, we're all hybrids. What I really wanted to do first and foremost is identify how the physical characteristics would influence the golf swing and how people would naturally move the club. Because it's always been my belief from having played so many sports that the more natural you can be, the better you can be. And so the point is that every one of you, it's a little bit like a lock. You know, a lock has a different combination. Every lock has a different combination. You need a special key to open a certain lock. All the keys are cut in a certain way, or whether it's a numbered lock, everybody has a special combination. Well, your golf swing is the same way. You have a special combination, and it's inherent to you. It's entirely yours. And so the trick is to find that key. And what it is that will make unlock your potential, essentially, because every one of you has the ability to be good at golf. Every one of you have the ability to be consistent at golf. And like I mentioned, is the more natural you are, the more consistent you're going to be. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of people try to figure this out on their own, and they set out to take lessons, or they'll watch videos on YouTube, or try to get some kind of ideas, but they end up just basically tainting their natural patterns and tendencies and try to do things that are really not going to be easy for them to do. It's just not inherent to their body type. And that creates a problem, and so they end up being frustrated and they never really fully improve. What happens is, if you go back to the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and before that, but into the 80s, you could see all kinds of different swings. If you watch golf on television, you saw all kinds of different swings. And that's because, and you saw all kinds of different builds. That's because players were playing in a more natural way. Back then, we did not have the equipment, the cameras, and all the accessories and tools that we have for analyzing like we have today. So the players were a lot more natural, and they played a lot more by feel. And so they would listen to their bodies and what their bodies naturally wanted to do. And somehow they all managed to be able to bring the club in this area, the impact area, pretty much the same way. Even though they varied as to how they moved the club going away from this area and coming back to this area, they managed to bring it all back down here somewhat similar. And so that was really interesting, because you could be 4 fairways over and you could see a swing over there, and you knew exactly who that was because you would recognize the golf swing. If you go to a PGA Tour event today and you look 4 fairways over, you're not going to know who that is unless you see their name on the bag, because basically it looks like all the swings kind of look alike. If you look at today's players, the swings are very much similar, contrary to what we saw way back when. Today, the teachers are using more of a cookie cutter kind of method. And nowadays, it's all method. Everything is structured from the very beginning, from the grip, the setup, everything is structured. And so what happens is, if you look at the best players in the world today, they're all kind of built similarly. They're almost all the same build. And that's because the model that's being taught fits that one body type. You'll notice, you're not going to see too many of these new young players, for example, built like Craig Stadler. But today, the model being taught is pretty much the same, so it only fits a certain body type. So if your son or your whoever wants to take lessons and they don't fit that model, it's going to be hard for them to be as good as they can be. But if the instruction was more similar to what was going on back in the, in the earlier years, they would have a better chance to also become good. If you look at certain swings from the past, Jack Nicklaus, with the flying elbow, well, there was a reason for that to happen because of his projected shoulders. And you cannot ask Jack Nicklaus to get very deep in the backswing because his shoulders would not allow it. We saw that in the flexibility test. People with his body type did not have a lot of flexibility and range of motion to bring the hands very deep behind them, so the hands stayed very shallow. And so he went with that. And Nicklaus, we all know his record and how great a player he was. Nicklaus never found golf easy, but he also never found it complicated. He kept it simple because he knew what he could do day after day. And look, there's nothing wrong with trying to emulate somebody or to do what somebody else does, but the key is to know that what you're doing is actually going to work for you or not. Because if it doesn't fit your body type, doesn't fit your natural tendencies, it's going to become very difficult. So the body type specific, it basically stands for a model that we established to be able for each one of those physical characteristics. So based on your combination, we're going to just a couple basic principles that you need to apply. And every one of you can be good. Every one of you can be consistent. And you can see great results and lower your scores. So that's the kind of thing that we can provide, is we can give you direction so that you'll maximize your power, you'll maximize your efficiency and your consistency, and be able to enjoy the game more, because it's really not that complicated. And so I hope this helps understand what BTS is all about. And I certainly hope to see you in one of our seminars.